Hi, I'm Brian Trenchard-Smith, and you're watching CF3. Two's company, but three gets us talked about.
Hello and welcome to another episode of CF3 Cult Fans, Films, and Finds, coming to you from Project Nerd.
Woo!
I'm Dane Michael.
And I'm Jeff Johnson.
And our co-host is a BMT bandit. Subway BMT? Italian BMT? Sandwich?
I would have went with the more common BLT, but suit yourself.
Unlike himself, at least that might be a foot long.
Right, the BMT can be a foot long. A BLT, you just imagine a small sandwich. But no.
I thought you were just saying, like you'd ever put lettuce on a sandwich.
The L in the BLT
right.
for you is lard. But anyway.
All right then.
James, where are you broadcasting from today, sir?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm about to take my bike down the water slide.
Oh, that might be a double wide going down there, though.
Don't get clogged in that pipe.
Yep. We'll need to call Super Mario Brothers for that one.
No.
Yes, sir.
Worst movie ever.
What are you guys drinking?
Water.
You know what? I'm going to go leave and get myself a drink.
Bag. I'm drinking
I need to get myself a drink.
It's from
I'll
Australia.
get myself a little drink as well.
It tastes gingery. Beery. Well, those mates are gone. I want to tell you this.
Well, if you don't want Bundaberg and you don't have an Australian beer, I have a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had Dane Michael on the line, not Tech Nerd 9000.
Is that a new invention, Tech Nerd?
I don't even know who that is. I've got my
I'm
Capri Sun, Australia's finest. But anyway, we had a great interview with director Brian Trenchard-Smith. And I mean, what can you say about this guy other than he's written an incredible book, Adventures in the B-Movie Trade, which is very reasonably priced on Amazon for how pretty much it's a textbook, you guys. I've ordered textbooks that are smaller than this, and it's filled with just picture upon picture. But we got to talk to the man who's directed so many great cult classics, and we're going to get into that, but we do need to make the disclaimer that he is in the wilderness in Oregon and suffers from low bandwidth. So the sound, the audio for the interview is perfectly clear. But there are many times when he just freezes up while he's talking, the video. But you can still see him. It's great. We had a great time talking to him. Our guest for this episode is the Anglo-Australian director of such B-movie standards as Turkey Shoot, Leprechaun Parts 3 and 4, Dead End Drive-In, as well as our featured film, BMX Bandits. He recently wrote and published the sprawling encyclopedic memoir, Adventures in the B-Movie Trade, which is akin to a textbook for indie filmmakers and pop culture historians alike. We welcome Brian Trenchard-Smith.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Welcome to CF3. What kinds of films did you like when you were growing up, and were any of them you would consider cult classics?
Well, of course, I think the concept of a cult classic did not exist during my formative years. I grew up on Westerns and war movies and gladiator pictures and, of course, big budget Hollywood epics. But frankly, I was just a cinema addict. And growing up in England, in the school holidays when I was allowed to see movies, and they were not allowed to. I went to 10 years of boarding school, so I didn't go to. There were only 4 films shown per term. Couldn't go to halls of public entertainment. It was against the rules. So, but in the holidays, the local cinema would play double bills Monday to Wednesday. Then they would change Thursday through to Saturday. And then they would have a pair of reissues, older films, on Sunday at one screening. And, that was my home away from home. So I have a pretty sort of wide-ranging taste. Obviously, in my late teenage years, I started to get involved in, foreign language films. From Waja from Poland and Kurosawa, obviously a lot of French movies, and some of them, of course, were dubbed and came across to England. Euro thrillers, Euro Bond. They sort of followed along with the spaghetti westerns. So those were my formative instincts. But I was drawn to big 70mm epics. Always wanted to make one, and I always try to make one, regardless of what the budget is. I like things to look big, and I think I was obviously influenced by big spectacles. The early films that I saw they seem to be spectacular and full of dynamic action. So that's the sort of stuff I wanted to make, because that's what excited me as a child. And I think every film director in some way is influenced by the first time he was sort of struck by the movie Thunderbolt.
And so you went on to make a lot of action-packed features and started out making movies about stuntmen, for example.
Yep.
Now, given your epic personal journey through film history, an autobiography is certainly warranted and welcome, but when did you decide to make that a reality, and how long did this 580-page book take to actually complete?
Never mind the quality, feel the bit. Anyway, it is a big book, yes. It will be a good sort of, paperweight, might other useful purposes.
A textbook.
Yeah. Well, of course, textbooks can be boring and dry.
Very picture-filled textbook.
Yeah, I think pictures, we're talking about the visual medium. And so, life is a movie to me, and I see shots everywhere. If you ever visit my blog on my website, I still practice, getting nice angles wherever. There's beauty all around me here in Oregon. It's about the visual image, and that's why the pictures in the book were important. I didn't want to ever write a sort of hooray for me kind of autobiography, or a career justification, or damn you critics, etc. So I'm not particularly kind to the critics. So I think I treat them with wry scorn. And I remember Otto Preminger, whom I interviewed for one of my TV specials back in 1972. He had a few choice words about critics. Otto the Ogre, as he was known to some of the stars he directed in the 50s and 60s. What a great guy. And I love a lot of his work where he manages to do the whole scene in one shot, and by adjusting the players in front of the camera or the camera in front of the players, he gives everybody that moment of emphasis at the important point in the dialogue. That's when one of his shots is really working well. Anyway, back to why the hell did you write this bloody book? Well, that's why a question I asked myself during the 2 years it took me to write it. But I had written in my first novel, Alice Through the Multiverse, which, if you like a ripping yarn to go to bed with every night, then I recommend it. But I thought, well, I haven't made a film since 2014. I spent 2 fruitless years, I think, trying to get a number of projects going, trying to get bigger budgets. But anyway, so in the end, I thought, as I settled into life in the Oregon forest here, I thought, well, let me do something useful with my time, and let me see if I can recount my experiences and all the mistakes I'd made along the way, and my thoughts on a wide variety of cinematic topics, camera style, editing, sound design, visual effects. I passed through many sort of phases of technology in all those aspects, and I thought it'd be interesting to comment upon them because I think cinema history is important, and I think all students of people who want to make films today should take a look at how films used to be made and gain some inspiration from that. Anyway, so I wanted to write something that was in fact a portrait of an era, and given COVID, which has sort of devastated the business in a variety of ways, it's almost has a fin de siècle quality, I think, to certainly the last part of the book. But basically, it's meant to be an entertaining ride through more than half a century of the movie business. That's the book. Read it and enjoy.
I mean, the book is more than just about you. That's what I really like about it. I've definitely gotten through there's a part about like the Kung Fu film era and the rise of Bruce Lee, and obviously the quick demise of Bruce Lee. You tell that story like quite well for anybody who doesn't know about it, even though the part about Bruce Lee had a small effect on you. I mean, you were going to make this documentary, flew to China, I believe, or Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, right.
And find out in the airport that he has just died. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the kind of things that are in here and why people should be reading this book.
Yeah. And of course, I had a little story in my suitcase that I was going to pitch to him that eventually became The Man from Hong Kong with Jimmy Wong Yu in the Bruce Lee role. I had conceived in 1972 what about a Chinese Dirty Harry comes to Australia or comes to Sydney and goes after the big guy and wrecks the place. That could be a great coat hanger for a wide variety of action scenes I've always wanted to do. So that was, but would Bruce have accepted the storyline? Would I have been allowed to write it? I certainly probably wouldn't have been allowed to direct it. He would have directed it himself, most likely. He directed his own action scenes in all his films. I studied his direction and his camera placement and the lenses he chose to use. I've run those sequences back and forth a lot of times, and he had an eye, and it's a tragedy that his talent was cut off, so young. Because I think he could be, like an octogenarian Clint Eastwood type filmmaker now. Still making dramatic films.
Style of his own.
And of course, he might have brought Asian. He might have made Asian culture or Asian cinema culture popular in America, before Jackie Chan was able to finally do it. I mean, if Bruce had gone on after the success of Enter the Dragon, and then made The Game of Death the way he wanted to, which had a lot of Chinese philosophy built into it, none of which ended up in the salvage job that was made from what he shot. Now, that might have raised the bar a little for, let's say, the intellectual depth of popular Asian cinema at that time. It might have built an earlier bridge between China and America in terms of an exchange of cinema. It just seemed to take Jackie Chan's first attempt, I think, The Big Brawl, that didn't work. And his Chinese movies, it took a while for them to come across. It took, eventually, I think it was the one he did in Vancouver.
Rumble in the Bronx and Super
Rumble in the
Cop
Bronx.
Two, I remember hearing.
That was the one that broke through. And then people rediscovered his, his Drunken Master, and Drunken Master 2 came on. But it just took a while for that sensibility to catch on. And that's a pity. So, but Bruce could have, been one of the great filmmakers for generations. So, those are the twists and turns of fate. But on the other hand, I bump into somebody one day and he says, I'm looking for a project. What have you got? Bang! Suddenly, I got a movie going. So you never know what fate will bring, and so you can't curse the missed opportunities or the bad luck. You just have to keep thinking of the good luck.
Now, in chapter 29 of your book, you discuss being approached to do a film called BMX Bandits.
Yes, great.
Now, we've chosen to highlight that movie for the purposes of our show. I stumbled across a review recently calling BMX Bandits a Goonie wannabe, which is poor journalism because it's difficult to want to be something that doesn't exist yet.
Yes, that had to be pointed out in Entertainment Weekly. Actually, it was my son. He wrote in and said, "Hey, you're wrong. Let me point this out." And there was this kind of a little bit of a sheepish, one of those apologies or retractions that still sort of, grimaced with pride. Anyway, I'll take what I can get. But no, and Quentin Tarantino presented BMX Bandits at some festival 10, 12 years ago. And he said it's better than the Goonies. And he was booed for saying that because, the Goonies hey, the Goonies is bloody good. I think the Goonies is terrific. I wish I had that kind of money to play with.
Yeah.
I had to make BMX Bandits for $1 million. Wow. But, it can be done. There are ways in which you can stretch a dollar. But anyway, so I'm very pleased that people of your generation discovered it. Long after people always thought it would be dead and buried, but it's had a continuing life ever since 1983 when it came out at Christmas in Australia, and then the American company went bankrupt that had bought it, and so didn't get the theatrical release it should have had, giving Hal Needham time to get Rad going. So my BMX ended up being bicycled around all the cable systems that were going at the time. HBO ran it, Showtime ran it, Disney Channel ran it. I in the 90s, I auditioned actors for films like Night of the Demons 2 and the Leprechaun series. And they said, hey, back 10 years ago, when we were kids, we would cut school to get home to get to the 4 o'clock screening of BMX Bandits on HBO. And there are other kids that have told me that they literally wore out the VHS copy that they rented from the shop. And so I'm therefore very happy that it's had some enduring appeal, I think partly because of its eccentricities, as well as, of course, Nicole Kidman.
I'm going to say you have an extremely young, extremely adorable Nicole Kidman. How was she to work with?
Oh, wonderful, really. When she auditioned, the producers weren't too keen on her because they said, well, she's taller than the two boys. And I said, well, what? Who cares?
That's life.
Just look at her. The camera loves her. And we did have a future Academy Award-winning cinematographer, John Seal, who was shooting the movie. And I said, she's got a flair for comedy. She's very cute and appealing. And so, anyway, I had my way. And her part was written as the tag-along girl. and it was written obviously very much from a male perspective, and I just kept pushing her into the foreground and putting the boys behind. And well, what do you most want to look at on the screen? I thought, and she just had a natural way of making dialogue that was sometimes a bit clunky work. Some of the dialogue in it, I must say, had some great wit and repartee. I basically moved the picture from a dockside setting in industrial Melbourne to the northern beaches of Sydney, which provided me with spectacular backdrops for nothing. That's a way you can stretch a dollar.
Yeah.
A question along those lines. I was going to ask you, are there any particular locations you liked shooting at, or were there any that presented any real problems for you?
Well, no, not really, because I was able to sweet talk people into an enormous amount of cooperation, which is, of course, part of the job of a filmmaker. No, when I made Death Cheaters in 1976, I staged a little dune buggy chase around a shopping mall on the northern beaches of Sydney, adjacent to. My production manager had a relationship with the manager of that mall, and so we were given carte blanche, and we ran this little dune buggy chase through, and they got a lot of publicity, and we didn't break anything, and so they were very happy when I called again in 1983 and said, could we do that again with bicycles and a car? And so they said, fine. And I pre-planned it. In fact, I've sent you just one of the ways I work is for a complex scene. I do a floor plan of the location and an overhead floor plan, and I have the progress of the characters or the vehicles charted through that floor plan, and then I have a number of numbered shots that are all conform to a shot list that I have written in the order that they will be cut together. And those numbered shots have arrows that point in the direction in which the camera will be pointing. So there's that level of logistical planning that enables you to get the most out of every hour of the working day, because every minute of every hour costs money. Even when you don't have much of a budget, well, everything costs. So, those are ways in which you can maximize your opportunities. But so the shopping mall, which some people would think, God, how did you get into a shopping mall? Well, friendly persuasion. And they got good publicity out of it, and they took pictures, and they had pictures posted of look where BMX Bandits was shot, and they also owned an adjacent disused aircraft hangar dating from the World War II period, with a sort of oval roof, and suddenly we were rained out on our last day of stunt and car action around the mall, and we'd run out of any interiors that we could push bikes and cars, etc., through. But so as I scratched my head, I said, that building over there, does that belong to you? And they said, yes, it does. Well, what's in it? Well, nothing. It's all empty. They used to house a flying boat or something. And I thought, oh, very good. Can we have it for the day? And that's how the big chase inside this deserted warehouse, that's why it took place. Sometimes you just have to improvise when you're in a tight spot. So knowing that they'd have to burst through the door,
right.
We let them in, had a fake door built while we worked in the interior, and avoided seeing out of that door. And until we could have a fake door put up there, and then get the crash through done, and on and on. And when I started the chase, I didn't know quite how I was going to get them out of that building, but I knew I would somehow. But I needed to keep shooting as I looked around and found a way to cycle them out through the back, the deserted offices and out the back door. And the car would then turn around and leave and go find them on the street somewhere else. And it's about an 18-minute chase between when it starts at the marina and ends, when they're after the building site debacle. These kind of movies, kids like a long chase. Did that answer some of your questions?
Oh, a lot of it.
Absolutely.
Good. I aim to please.
Did you wind up having to cut anything out of that chase, or were you always like, oh, I wish I had time to shoot even more?
Oh, I always wish I had time to shoot even more. I mean, James Cameron says, that there's never enough money and there's never enough time.
He says that?
Yes.
He has all of that.
Yes. He says films are not finished.
You must be like, what a dick.
Well, no, I like Cameron's work. I like the work of all the current celebrated directors. I like Nolan. I like Cameron. I like the Coen brothers. Look, I'm a lot of directors that I haven't named that are really good.
Can you tell us about John Seale's work in this movie, and then go on to tell us what has been your favorite John Seale work since then, since in the post BTS era?
I mean, John is always, his work is always beautifully lit and colorful. He was my second unit cameraman on Man from Hong Kong. He'd been operating a camera for nearly, I think he joined as a teenager, and he did 15 years a camera operator. And after Man from Hong Kong, my next picture, which had to be made for a quarter of the budget, I thought, well, I'm going to get people to be the heads of department that they haven't had the chance to be up to that point. So I said, be the director of photography and the operator. And I gave him his first, director of photography job. And I luckily had him for 4 pictures total before I couldn't possibly afford him. And BMX Bandits was the last. He has a great eye for composition, for framing, and I learned a lot from that. And he shared my love of camera movement and low angles, bringing the action right into the lens, and that I liked rig shots. I've always liked putting the camera on a moving object that the audience can't get off. So the camera's bolted to the car, viewing the front wheel in foreground, and it's coming fast right up the arse of a car ahead. And that's a nice a nice visceral moment for the audience, particularly if you get into the you actually have the collision. But you can put cameras on all sorts of places. And these days, with the GoPro, you can do just about anything. You put them anywhere. But back in 1974, when we shot Man from Hong Kong, and I tried to do as many rig shots in the car chase as possible, viewing lots of different perspectives. By 1983, that was pretty common in action scenes. But no one had tried to put 35 millimeter cameras on BMX bikes because of the weight issue, and not just the weight issue, but also the counterweight issue. If you have a weight on one side, you've got to have a matching weight on the other side. And so if you want to put you've got to somehow get a camera behind the pedal as viewing forward. Then you've got to set up a tray upon which to put your lightest possible camera, which I think in 1983 was an Arri 2C, and with a 100-foot load, and you had to get the exact weight and put that onto the opposite side. And then the riders, and they were all stunt riders, they were sort of competitive BMXers, and we hired them as stunt riders. They had to push, they had to pedal hard, and we had to deal with the balance problem. So we were able to be in front of the front wheel, looking back up at them. We were able to chase them, and so forth. So. And eventually we were able to actually send a camera down the water slide behind them and in front of them.
Great scene. So, that was a great scene.
Yeah.
Great thing. So John Seale was able to take my ambitious idea and make it all happen on the budget that we had. So I said, I want these, all these different shots, perspectives. Whenever we can get these kind of perspectives where the camera is riding on the momentum of the action, then we should do that. And he was, that's one of the reasons he rose to be one of the top camera people in Hollywood. He told me that when he was shooting Witness with Peter Weir, they came to do the barn scene where they're working with the cow. And there was this beautiful light that was shining through the slats in the wall of the barn, beautiful shaft of golden light. And Peter said, right, I want to do the scene with that light. And the American grips and electrics were saying, well, wait a minute, we're going to have to tent the whole barn. We're going to have to get brute arcs over there and blast the light in. And then you'll always have exactly the same light for as long as you want to shoot. And Peter and John said, if we can do it, if we can start shooting in 10 minutes, the available light that we've got is everything we'll need. So let's go. We don't have to, we can get this shot in an hour and it'll be fine. And we can maybe enhance a few edges here and there with a couple of soft lights. But anyway, he told me that they were not expecting that approach. They were expecting the safety first approach, because there's nothing more embarrassing to go with available light and then not finish the scene, and then have to reshoot it when you have totally relit it. Anyway, he had the expertise to know just how he could handle. He was very good with available light. Which you just need a bit of bounce sometimes, and does the job.
I particularly enjoyed the behind the right pedal scene, going downhill, coasting. I was watching that scene and I'm thinking, this is how I know that these are not lazy filmmakers. These are diligent filmmakers that are giving us a shot that, like, this is what, to me, these kinds of shots are what makes this movie stand up today. Like, you can watch it and it's not put together lazily. And I have a question for you about the cemetery scene. First of all, amazing cemetery. I'm assuming it was a real cemetery. Amazing cemetery. Yes. How do you get permission to do what you did in there? And I was filled with anxiety through the entire scene. Is that what you wanted me to feel? Those two questions.
Oh, good. How old were you when you were first filled with anxiety about the scene? How old were you when you saw it?
42.
Very good. I am better than I thought. That's good. No, okay. No, look, I think graveyards affect people. It's not hard to get spooked by a graveyard. And of course, if you saw it in the theater, not on the video screen, if you saw it with that CinemaScope's frame wrapped around your peripheral vision, and it's dark, and the Dolby sound is playing well, and it sucks you in. But in 1983, there was a higher level of cooperation and laissez-faire to a degree by local councils and towards the Australian film industry. They thought, this is good. Our films are getting seen overseas. This is good for Australia. Let's give the filmmakers a break. So I think it's become much more corporatized now, and everyone wants their piece. And I've had to sort of go and plead with the council on my last film, Dead End Drive-In, and I actually used BMX Bandits as an example. I wanted to do part of the chase along the beachfront, and I was told, that'll be far too expensive. All the parking, all the police, security, and etc. And I said no. I went in and showed a route that would give me all the spectacular backgrounds of the beachfront, and reminded the council that of BMX Bandits, and they were people just like yourself who are mad fans of BMX Bandits. And so what was expected to be a $5,000 location fee plus the parking, which could be another $3,000 or $4,000, $750. Thank you. So, where there is goodwill with public bodies, or even with private companies, and an affection for the film business and a level of trust that has been built with the filmmaker, then things can be negotiated. But so I think your original question also was to do with difficulties of locations for BMX Bandits, but we just found that people were just very happy to help. It is I think a lot harder to get into some of those places now than it was when I was doing it.
It just seemed like such a vast location, and I'm sure a lot of that is camera work, but was it as big of a cemetery as it appeared to be?
It is big, very big. Awful lot of people were planted there from the 1870s onwards. And our deal with the cemetery was no names would be recognizable on the tombs, and that was really the only concern. We dug ourselves the grave we needed or at least to appear to have jumped into. Then we had an interior grave we built in the studio. But over 2 nights of photography, we got what was necessary inside the graveyard, and half a night gave us the exterior where they approach and then they escape. Then we improvised the drunk. But look, there's a.
I love that part.
Yeah, it's an old gag, but it always works. And you think, oh, well, good, he's going to give up drink now. Anyway, so I said, I'm not. No.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway.
I'll drink to
Cheers.
that.
Cheers.
Hey, Brian, whose idea was it to arm the group of BMX kids with bags of flour? Because I thought that was brilliant.
Well, I worked with our stunt coordinator, Bob Hicks, no longer with us, sadly. And we've lost a few of the cast. Brian Marshall, the boss, he's gone now. Wasn't he great in The Long Good Friday, if you ever saw that? Great British thriller, crime thriller. But Bob Hicks, said, well, we've got to have a battle where people have got to get physical with each other, but they're kids, and a lot of the kids who are coming along to help, they're even younger than these 15-year-olds, and so obviously we want to make sure that they don't get hurt, and that the adults who've become kind of grouchy and threatening by this stage and have baseball bats. We don't really want a scene where they try to hit a kid with a baseball bat, because that's probably going to deny us the G rating that was important to get. And I know if you actually look at the film for its political incorrectness, I pushed the envelope a fair bit, but I knew that the the 10-year-old in us all would appreciate the things that somehow we were able to get away with a G rating. In the UK, they gave it a PG rating. But I will just give you an example of what an IMDb. I'd have to move to my computer. Well, IMDb always give you a list for the protection of minors. The things, certifications, and then they sex and nudity. Boy kisses girl, woman nipples man's ear. Violence and gore. Armed bank robbery, talk of dismembered bodies multiple times, boy is robbed, teenagers push adults into water, then throw heavy items directly at them. Bad guys destroy multiple store displays. Knife is pulled on teens, teen girl is kidnapped. Adults arm themselves with shooters and clubs against the BMX kids. Kids throw flour sacks at adults, kids on bikes run over. And at adults talk of burning and cutting a person.
Boy, when you lay it like that.
Yeah.
You're basically the devil.
In the profanity, because they always list if there's any profanity in a film. X-rated material conversations, talk of being sexy. Boy is called chubby. Man says he wants to beat it info out of a teen girl. And I sent you a picture of John Lee with the flick knife, menacing Nicole Kidman. Adults say stupid to BMX kids. Oh boy, we're really in the politically correct territory. Really, kid says stupid twice. Adult tells teen to shut up. Well, I mean, you're lucky you didn't tell him to fuck off, Anyway, smart ass is said between two adults in front of teen. Phrase in the poo used. Dummies used. So anyway, so that's how we were kind of pushing our luck, maybe, when you think about all that, but people are thinking about it a whole lot more these days. My one feeling where I did go too far was the kind of loving the shots with the shotguns at the bank robbery, where they're loading the guns, and the use of guns. I think was not right. And if I were to make BMX again, I would not have the bank robbers armed. But that's, I grew up on films with armed robbery all the time when I was a kid. So
that's how one goes about robbing a bank.
Yeah, show me a Western that doesn't have a gun in it, and it won't be a Western anymore. Brian, I have a question for you that is serious in nature, may be offensive to some people. If you don't want to answer it, I certainly understand. We can edit the podcast or the video cast. It'll be fine. That question is, what do we want?
A BMX
track.
And when do we want it?
Now.
Oh.
All right. So maybe it wasn't so personal.
Shout out like you got a pair.
And they got that BMX track.
Yes,
they did. They did. They did a civic service to the community, and they got their reward. So that was I shot that, with just a couple of cameras and one makeup artist at an actual BMX track rally, and that provided the final sequence. And we did that a few days after the main part of the shoot was finished.
I have one final question for you on this film, and I want to bring it up to you because I don't want you to watch the episode later on and be like, that fat bastard. So I want to ask you the question to your face. All right?
I think chubby is the word, isn't it?
That's fine. That'll get you a PG rating.
It'll still
get you a PG rating. My question to you, and I'm trying to think of the best way to word it. I'm watching this film. I'm a male. I love Nicole Kidman now. Love Nicole Kidman then. I'm watching, and all of a sudden she starts doing all these amazing stunts on the bike, and I'm watching like, oh, that's sexy as hell. But then I'm seeing the frame of this person. That's not what I'm attracted to. So I'm thinking to myself, how hard is it, to find a stunt double that has the same frame, or I'm assuming this was a male that did the stunts. That's what it looks like to me. But does it bother you to this day? And was it something you stressed about at the time? Because it's going to be in my comments on the film. That's why I'm asking you now.
No, it's a very valid question. And naturally, when I cast Nicole, who has a particularly slender physique, and still has, she was over 50 and she still looks 35, and so, but it's the slenderness of her physique that was the issue, because in order to be really good on a BMX bike, you've got to pump those thighs. You've got to, and you're sitting on the saddle, and it doesn't necessarily mean your ass will spread, but generally BMXers don't necessarily have the ass of a Paris model, and so so we knew we looked for girls, but they tended to be so obviously a stocky mismatch for Nicole. We had to go with a guy, an 18-year-old boy who was the son of the guy, our sort of BMX contact. He had organized BMX rallies and so forth in Sydney, and was very active in the BMX movement at that time. And he basically dragooned his son into the role of Nicole's stunt double, which I'm sure has given the poor boy psychological problems ever since. But when you're 18, and this is 1983, before more progressive attitudes, and you're dressed in a girly version of a BMX track costume, and you've got this wig, and which goes under your helmet, but it's still, sometimes you still have the helmet and the wig on when you're walking around without the helmet between takes. And anyway, so I think he got a degree of teasing, but hey, to have been Nicole Kidman's the only male stunt double in her entire career history would be, I think, a badge of pride for him. Anyway, I should think so. And his name is on the credits along with as the three stunt riders. I don't actually recall his precise name at the moment. But he did a good job. They all did a good job, and they, particularly when the bikes were carrying cameras, they really had to pedal like hell, and they showed that they were good competitors. Anyway, so every day we had fun. It was fun to be kids alongside the kids.
And on this week's CF3 TV, our feature film is BMX Bandits. 3 teens in Manly, Australia salvage a stash of walkie-talkies. They are quick to sell these items to all their BMX cohorts, but little do they know the people who wanted these walkie-talkies are a hardened gang of criminals that needed them for their own next very important job. They'll do just about anything to catch these teens and get their equipment back, and insanity ensues. All right, Dane. All right, Dames. Were you guys BMX Bandits back in the day, or did you just like looking at the bikes?
I believe we had Huffies as opposed to BMX.
James did a lot of huffing.
God damn it.
I remember not being able to ride a bike for a while, but then I got training wheels finally. But BMX, no, those were like expensive bikes, dude. Did you have one, Jeff?
No, I had kind of like the Shopko brand knockoff sort of thing. It was okay. I enjoyed it, but I got plenty of scraped knees. No
I
tricks.
remember like when I finally like did learn how to ride a bike and stuff, I would run around like singing Danny Champion of the World, which was like I think it was a movie about a kid who rode bikes, but
Ooh,
not this one. I had never
Yeah.
seen this one until adulthood. When do you recall first seeing BMX Bandits, Jeff?
oh God, I never even heard of this until it was brought up as a potential review for the podcast. So, I mean, TV show.
Dames, same thing for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I've only seen it 4 times, and it's all been within the last year.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember the first time that I actually saw it was, I think, on Amazon Prime. And then I went and bought the Severin Blu-ray disc. And
then what?
and then I sold it because I was like, oh, I'm paring down my collection to just a few labels, and now it's built back up again, and now I want the movie back. And it had gone out of print from Severin. Until Jeff just recently pointed out to me a link on Amazon where you can order it, coming out in May 2021. So if you're catching this before or after that, it might be available already.
Sounds like it's coming back in print. Yeah.
So we are hoping that they're repressing it finally, and I can get it back. Because when he showed me the order link, I looked at my account and it said last ordered 2012. I was like, oh, I've ordered this before. So that 2012 I knew was like around the first time that I ever saw this movie. And it's made for kids. Sure. Was I like almost 40 when I saw it? Actually, the first time I saw it, I was like pretty much closer to 30, but I still thought it was great. And I still think it's great 10 years later. So let's move on to our first of our mini segments, Jeff.
Vroom, vroom. We're going to rev it up. Oh, man. What you got to look at in this movie is the big glaring question of what were the bad guys driving? That was a 1972 Ford Galaxy Limited. Those are actually pretty popular muscle cars down in Australia from the research I was doing. And I can't really go into like the gigantic list of all the cars in the movie, but that is the big one. The other one that I noticed was the police cars were the Holden manufacturer. That's predominantly an Australian brand. There were some Beamers, there were some Volkswagens, but a lot of what you saw rolling around was largely Australian.
And none of them really can compare to the might of the mongoose.
The goose!
Because this movie is very much about bikes. But thanks anyway, Jeff, for revving it up. Dames Marvs, take us into the Playboy Watch.
Ooh.
Gladly, Dane and Jeff. Here's what I was able to find. The first thing I want to bring up is a tasty issue from July of 1992.
Tasty?
Tell me that's not tasty, Dane.
Who's on the cover there?
Oh,
Pamela Anderson.
Okay.
What,
Or
you
as
don't
we used to
recognize
we used to refer to her as Pamela Henderson. This issue specifically deals with a 20 questions with Nicole Kidman. I read the 20 questions. They don't seem at all concerned with Nicole Kidman. They're all basically asking her about is her marriage to Tom Cruise and what that's like.
Insulting.
So yeah, insulting.
They only had 20 questions for that? Jeez.
The second one is this smoke show of an issue from February 2005 featuring Terry Polo. And this one has the big interview on top and in control. And that features questions more about her advancing in filmmaking, like with Stanley Kubrick, et cetera, which leads me to the final thing I want to talk about. I don't know. I mean, in my research, I could find those two things, but I know for damn sure that sex and cinema, a topic that greatly and widely came up in Playboy magazines, where they would show photographs from all the celebrities that have been in sexy movies throughout the year, that her performance in Eyes Wide Shut would have shown up on one of those. I just don't know which one it was, but I know for damn sure that it was in there, in one of them. So that's what I got for the Playboy segment.
I don't understand though. What's the connection between Nicole Kidman and this movie?
She's in it.
What?
A very young Nicole Kidman. And just to connect the dames, I actually had that issue from the Terry Polo cover like years ago. I no longer have any of those, but I did have that one at that time.
Is she great?
Boy, that yeah.
No, she's not. She's
your
fucking great.
Fucking great. Nice.
Guess what, you guys?
What?
I think
What?
all three of us, this is true of all three of us. We all three deserve more credit, but we're not here to talk about ourselves right now. We're here to make a case for three individuals from BMX Bandits who we believe deserve more credit. And so we're going to take turns going through that for our newish segment. Who wants to go first? Okay, I'll go. You twisted my arm. First of all, I love the cinematography in BMX Bandits. And that should come as no surprise because the director of photography is John Seal. John Seal deserves more credit than you just thinking he lensed BMX Bandits. The fact is, this man has done things as recent as Mad Max Fury Road, which is incredible, and another Australian production.
I love it.
1985's Witness with Harrison Ford, nominated for Best Picture.
Can I
Dead
get
Poets Society, which we all recently purchased for cheap on Blu-ray.
I had it already.
And he's got an Oscar. He won an Oscar for cinematography for The English Patient. Rain Man, another Best Picture that he.
Oh, definitely want to give him more credit for Rain Man. Yeah, definitely give him credit for that. Yeah,
That's just like a handful. Like his whole career, every year he's got like multiples of stuff like that. It's just
You could spend an hour going through his filmography.
And like I think he really did pretty much start off working with Brian and just branched out from there.
We could spend an hour. Yeah, he started with Brian.
John Seal, you deserve more credit. Jeff, what do you got?
I was going to go with John Lay. He is best known for being Charlie in the original Mad Max. So the Mad Max connection continues with our Australian films, but he also was in, I wrote down a terrific movie called Turkey Shoot and a nice Australian movie, The Highest Honor, which is a World War II centered movie. I'm still looking for a copy to watch that. I had to watch a rough beat up copy recently, and it's a really good movie. Everybody should get a look at it. It's more about Australia's position during World War II. So it was a different point of view, and it was very nice to see that. And he did very good.
Turkey Shoot is awesome. That's another Brian Trenchard-Smith movie, but it's quite different than Bandits.
Oh, yeah.
Quentin Tarantino loves Turkey Shoot. Very exploitation-filled, action-filled. And he was the guy he was like one of the police officers in Mad Max, right? He was driving like the yellow.
Yeah, he was
Big Bopper.
His character was Charlie. When I saw the picture, I'm like, holy crap! I actually remembered him, but the cheesy mustache through the whole movie was throwing me. So
right, wasn't that his character's name? Mustache. I think his character is called Mustache in this.
I actually have a different nickname for him, but that's okay.
Handlebar.
Porn stash.
There you go. James Marvs, it's your turn now. Highlight a little known person who deserves more credit.
I'm gonna go with big surprise here, guys. Nicole Kidman.
She was in this?
She deserves more credit. You didn't know
Where the
she
hell
was
was
in
she?
it.
I never saw her.
Because if you didn't know, I mean, you missed her because her springy, spirally porcupine hair has calmed down quite a bit in recent years. But, she's landed Tom Cruise, Ethan Hawke, Keith Urban. She was in movies Eyes Wide Shut, Batman Forever, Just Go With It, Cold Mountain.
Lion.
I mean,
you can't pick her good movies. Like, oh, jeez.
Rabbit
geez.
Hole.
What year was that?
Others?
Days of Thunder. Far and Away.
Australia.
Dead Calm.
Australia.
There you go, Australia. Baz Luhrmann's production. Australia.
This was her first feature film, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan, for casting her.
Who knew it?
And Brian has a in his book he has an article of a newspaper interview that he did, and it's got him and Nicole in a photo where he's like touting that film production companies need to take notice to this young starlet, and it didn't take long for her to start landing other roles. So good stuff.
Good stuff.
All right, that's a good segue into the total recast.
For the memory of a lifetime, recast, recast, recast.
All right, who wants to start us off with total recast? Okay, I'll go. Twist my arm.
Boy, give us a chance here, buddy.
So, you guys, this movie, I'm going to approach, not a reboot, I'm going to approach the original production. Hugh Jackman is Australian.
Ooh.
He was born in 1968, meaning he would have been about 15 years old at the time of BMX Bandits. Perfect. Wolverine on a bike, sign me up, please. Instead, we would have to wait until 2008 to see the legendary Aussies Nicole Kidman and Hugh Jackman together in
Australia.
Baz Luhrmann's production of Australia.
Okay, well, question for you. Who would you cast him as in this then? Goose or
Angelo
PJ?
D'Angelo.
I would
Replace
cast it.
Angelo
Well, I don't know what he
D'Angelo.
looked like when he was 15. Hopefully we can find a picture.
I think he would have looked a little more like Goose, but who knows?
Goose was like the goofball, right? Like
Yeah.
had no chance with Nicole Kidman. I don't know. That's
I'd be curious.
one of them. We cast him as one of them. James Marbs.
That's solid. All right,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you're
fuck this shit all up, man. First of all, I'm leaving Nicole Kidman alone.
Good.
I'm replacing Goose and Angelo D'Angelo's character with Ralph Macchio and William Zabka. Okay, stay with
I
me.
wonder why.
Would you make them?
I'm just trying to give this fucking star power. Is what I'm trying to do.
Would you make them have to have Australian accents?
Yes, of course, of course, of course. And then Whitey and Mustache. I'm getting Michael McKean and Christopher Guest to be the bad guys that they go against.
I like it.
And then the boss, he fucking looks like Chuck Norris, so I'm gonna replace him with Chuck Norris. And that's a fucking star-studded film right there. Boom.
You Americanized it. Gotcha.
Totally recasted.
He just wanted it to be American. He doesn't like. You realize Karate Kid a year later is what made Macchio and Zabka stars. They weren't stars. They wouldn't have been stars in '83.
I know.
All right, Jeff.
But it'd be way better now going back and watching that movie.
Well, for me, if we were going to go old school, I wouldn't change too much of the original cast because it's great to have the unknowns and give them a fresh look in front of eyes. Although, going old era, I couldn't help myself watching this movie thinking that the boss could be better played by Paul Hogan.
All right.
Nice. All right.
But I thought that would be pretty outstanding
Jeff.
because it was against typecast. So,
Jeff, I'm petting your head right now. That's a great answer.
and if we were going to go new, I do the boss as Hugh Jackman. So I pull that back around with Dane. He could go old and he could do new.
How old would Steve Irwin have been in 1983?
He would have been a good cop, actually.
Oh,
God.
Or one of the guys chasing the kids through the cemetery.
and now it is time to go over our favorite lines.
Mm.
Don't be a creep all your life.
Do we have to do them all in Australian accents?
Probably.
You're staring death in the face.
It doesn't get X-rated until I was 12.
What do we want? A BMX track. What do
What do we want it?
No.
Now I'm on it. I'm on it, Dean. I'm on it. If we put our heads together, we can come up with something. Yeah, multiple dandruff.
Yes.
I'm not going into a cemetery dressed as a pig.
I believe the dandruff line is one of the best favorite lines that we've ever
Here's my
discussed.
this is my ultimate favorite is when during the mall chase, the bikes go by and the little kid's holding his mom's hand. He's like, BMX. Wow.
Since you mentioned the mall, I want to show that picture again that Brian gave us of the diagram of him drawing up the mall action. And because it's been brought up, a mall, you guys, we're not doing this on purpose. We're not we don't have some qualification for the movies we're doing this season that everyone has to have something to do with a mall. But
Dane, you're like subliminally across the top of the screen. Bring back malls. Bring back malls.
mall
What's next? Dawn
is
of the
alive
Dead?
and well.
We miss the mall.
Zack
Yeah.
Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. No.
Oh my God. If
Even
we did
pedestrian
that next, we'd be like, all right, the jig is up.
Yeah.
Okay, that was favorite lines, budget, and box office report. James Marvs.
Holy shit. Holy shit. All right. I don't know what this translates to in
Language.
Aussie to American dollars.
Well, it says it's
But-
in English, so.
The budget for this movie was 1.05 million Australian. It made 124,649 Australian dollars before opening up to the world, where it basically made back its money, and that's about it. So sadly.
But then I think it did really well on home video,
Yes.
especially in Australia. So
And in Britain, as Brian reminds us, it does well. So
there's a quote on the back of the I remember this vividly, but you can see like the screenshot of it on blu-ray.com. On the back of the Blu-ray or the front, there's a quote from Quentin Tarantino, and it says, if we would have grown up in Australia, this would have been our Goonies.
Mhm.
And I agree with that. I think that it probably could have been. So, I mean, there's less at stake, I think,
right.
but there's no pirates.
You're threatening Nicole Kidman with a knife, and how are we going to get rid of her?
Oh, dude! But if you replace the boss with Mama Fratelli, then you definitely have a case.
Let's get down to our final thoughts on BMX Bandits. Dames Marvs.
I've watched this movie 4 times now. The last time within minutes ago. It was finished it for the 4th time this afternoon. And I remember watching it the first time thinking it was a little clunky and that it was just one long stunt of a film. That was my initial thoughts. Now, this time around, I don't find it to be clunky. I find it to be pretty well put together. The story has a nice flow to it. Nothing is really out of order. I don't find myself questioning why they filmed some of the areas and locations that they did. It does seem to me, it feels like the movie is overdubbed, highly overdubbed, just because the characters' voices don't seem to match the actual people, but it is them. It's just a weird thing that you get used to over the course of the movie. Of course, Nicole Kidman's gorgeous, cute, adorable. These other guys are very likable characters. The one thing that I did comment, and I even brought it up to Brian because I knew that I would be bringing it up in my final thoughts, was when they had to do stunts for Nicole Kidman. They obviously could not find a female stunt cyclist, and it's off-putting because I'm a guy. When I'm looking at Nicole Kidman, I'm looking at her form, especially if she's in a tight biking outfit. I'm like, oh, this makes me feel funny.
And especially when she's 13 or 14.
Yeah. Well, shut up.
Yeah, dude.
No, she was like,
it doesn't matter because I know her as now. So it's just it was weird. I'm not saying that you could totally notice, because they do like show the face of the guy.
Yep.
That's playing her, and it's like very clear. But that's not supposed to be your focus. You're supposed to be focused on the stunts. But I was like, that's a dude. And I asked him about it, and he gave me a good answer. I was satisfied with. I like the movie overall. What I did for my score, which I'll show you after everyone's done, is look at where it falls in the other movies that we've done and where it falls for me, and that's where I put my score. So, Jeff, go ahead.
I really like the movie. Like I said, I haven't even really heard about this until we were doing this for the show. But I got a really big kick out of it. My only kind of pullbacks are the music's good. It gets a little goofy at times, especially towards the end with the end sequence of everything. It's really kind of cheesy goofy. I don't think it was really necessary, but I understand why they did it. Kind of keep that PG rating going, make it a little more family friendly. The cast was good. The writing was pretty good. It was very enjoyable. I really got a kick out of the speedboat that the guys were in. That thing was like the most bitchin' thing next to the car in the whole movie as far as like cool badass stuff. The choreography was good. Cinematography was excellent. I couldn't get over how well and nicely shot this was. Even watching this off of Amazon Prime, which is for free. You can watch this off of Pluto TV and I think Tubi, but Tubi's got commercials. But I got a really good kick out of this movie. It's a lot of fun, and it's a good time. So why not check it out? And I give it a thumbs up, but I'll show you my score in a little bit. But Dane, what did you think of BMX Bandits?
First thing that like stood out to me when this movie starts is how colorful it is. Like the colors just pop.
Yeah.
And I know part of that is the 80s. There was an emphasis on bright colors in the 80s. But I think that John Seal, his cinematography, lighting, they just did a great job of bringing that out. And like really the only scene that lacks color is like the cemetery graveyard scene. Colorful. It's very apparent that this movie was devised as a way to pump up the BMX craze, and it's apparent that Brian Trenchard-Smith got his start in stunt filmmaking because this is a stunt film. That said, he devises like a great number of set pieces so that it's not all boring the same. A little bit of like when we did Rad, most of that was just guys riding on a course, and even that was cool. But like here, he's got them going through a pedestrian mall. He's got them going down water slides on their freaking bikes, through the beautiful hills of Sydney or Melbourne or wherever the hell they shot it.
I think that's probably where Quentin Tarantino draws the comparison to Goonies, like all the pratfalls, that they go through on their journey is very similar.
Big adventure.
Yeah.
And then you've got like I just love the part where they rally all the kids in the neighborhood
Yeah.
to like take down these guys. And it's like, you could show this to somebody any age and they should be able to enjoy it. Maybe like a 90-year-old's going to be like, what the hell is this?
I look like I came out of a bakery.
No, they'll go, BMX. Wow.
They'll be like, those kids should be more respectful and return those stolen goods.
We never had to ride bikes back in our day.
But
We had to walk 20 miles in the snow.
and unlike Jeff, who has issues with, I guess, the final song, I freaking love it. I think it's great. It was clearly
I don't
written
mean
for
the
the
end
movie.
credits. I'm talking like the scoring of. the
Oh,
final
okay.
song.
Just so you don't have an issue with the final song. Okay.
Yeah.
I just think the lyrics are hilarious and they're very specifically about things happening in the movie. And it's just a fun 80s pop song. So let's reveal our
But first, let's hear what Brian thinks about it.
We do a thing on our show called the Cult Filmometer, where each of us rates our featured film on a scale of 0 to 100 for our Cult Filmometer. We take the average of that, and the film gets a final score. We would like you to rate BMX Bandits for the Cult Filmometer 0 to 100. That's the only rule. You could give it 100. You could...
For whatever reason you want, any criteria you want.
Exactly.
Well, yes. I mean, honestly, I think BMX Bandits is one of a kind. There's nothing quite like it around when you consider its mixture of genres, its cultural flavorings, which are part British, part Australian. I wanted a British vein in the film. Got to think, sometimes, where will this film play best? Obviously play well in Australia, but BMX is quite something in England. I don't think I can. I think I concentrate on making it appealing in England and Australia and New Zealand. Maybe the Americans will like it. So I wanted it to have a particular flavor. I like genre cocktails. I like mixing ingredients and flavors. So I give up BMX Bandits 100% simply because you really shouldn't judge it against the Goonies or the Goonies against it. You shouldn't judge it against other interesting kids pictures that have always been that are well thought of. It's one of a kind.
Hey.
Okay, great. Yeah, cool.
So we are starting off with the 100 from Brian. That's cool. Do you guys who wants to count it down from 3?
2, 1.
Bing bong bing, bing bong bing. We got a 78 from Dames, an 84 from Jeff, an 87 from me, 100 from Brian.
You see, your stupid lives, stupid.
The movie BMX Bandits is going to get an 87.25.
Nice.
87.25 puts it just above Joysticks at 81.25 and just behind Chopping Mall at 88.
Ooh, the malls are lining up in the middle.
I think that's correct. We got it right again. And look what my score was. 0.25 off the total again.
The closest without going over wins.
Do I win both showcases?
So again, folks, for those of you following along, we have Howard the Duck at the low spot at 74.79, Joysticks at 81.25, the newest release here, BMX Bandits at 87.25, Chopping Mall at 88, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead at 89.25, Mallrats at 89.75, and Total Recall topping our list at 93.5.
Totally.
Well, guys, we got through this episode without a dingo eating our baby.
Unless you count
Crikey.
dimes and whatever he's having for dinner later.
Whoa! You guys, look at this girl!
Woo-hoo!
Here on CF3, have fun that's everlasting, binging on cult films and totally recasting, interviewing stars and making fun of Dave's marks. What's your favorite line and what's your latest cult find? CF3, hey! Dane, Jeff, Dames, Greg?